Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me. I am Shane Snipes. I am the host here at the eShip Show at the Borough Manhattan Community College. This is a show specifically designed for entrepreneurs and people who are either on their entrepreneurial journey already and learning from other entrepreneurs, or maybe you're just interested in entrepreneurship because you've heard some things about it. Either way, this is a great show for you because we always start from the entrepreneur's journey and build from that. Today, I'm super excited to have Luis Delahoz, who is going to be our guest today. He is a very successful professional in his own right and has experience in the entrepreneurship space. He also has a lot of experience in things that I know a lot of you guys are interested in, which is the finance side and banking, and understanding what that means for startups and what that means for entrepreneurs. We'll dive into that a little bit after we talk about his journey of being heavily involved in the Latino and Hispanic communities and the ways that they're trying to build entrepreneurship in their particular neighborhoods and communities. The great thing about entrepreneurship these days, and particularly in the New York City area, is you have, whether you're in New Jersey or Connecticut or any other parts around New York City, you can really connect to this ecosystem really well. And I think Luis today is going to talk to us quite a bit about the ways that happen. And I don't know if you know this, Luis, but BMCC has like 41% Hispanic population.
Wow. Doesn't surprise me, but I'm very happy to hear that.
Yeah. And welcome, by the way. Thank you so much for joining me today.
No, thank you very much. I'm an entrepreneur myself. I own a business for the past 14 years. Yesterday, I realized that we celebrate 14 years in business.
Oh, my God.
Yes.
So yesterday was your business birthday. Happy birthday for that.
Thank you. Yes, I came from Colombia back in 2004. And in 2005, I was able to start my own business.
Yeah. Well, we're going to talk all about those pieces and the ways sort of your journey began and all that parts started out. But tell me a little bit about when you first came to the United States and you were thinking about starting a business here in the US. What was most intimidating for you at that point?
I think access to capital is the most difficult part because we don't have enough money to start our own business, right? But back then, I was so fortunate that I came when the economy was like on the most important expansion in the last few years. And I remember that experience was really like surreal. I went to a branch, I asked for 40,000. In 5 minutes, they told me like, you can only qualify for 37,500. Do you want them? I say, yes. And by the time that I get to the train station to buy my ticket to go to work, the money was already there. And, for me, the reason that was surreal is because in Colombia, where I came from, you need to prove that you don't need the money in order for you to secure the loan. Like you need to prove to them that you don't need it, that you are you have enough collateral to cover like the loan twice before you can access to capital. And for me, that was the experience. And I say, wow, this is magnificent. That's what they call the land of opportunity.
Yeah.
If everybody can get this.
Yeah. So talk to me a little bit about that capital process, because people, I know a lot of my students still see capital as a huge issue, and they also see that there is that barrier that has been written about, discussed, explored for many, many decades now that basically says what you said. In other words, the old way of viewing capital was you can only get capital if you don't need the capital.
Yes.
How did that barrier kind of change for you in the United States in particular?
No, when I came here, one thing that I realized, and the first like piece of advice that I got was, you need to build your personal credit history, and I did that. Right. The other piece of advice that was my uncle. He told me like, you need to have some capital. Nobody will offer you 100%. If you say at least $10,000, when you go to the financial institution, now you have some of your own money and you can ask for their money, but nobody can offer 100% of what you need. That was the two things that I learned. Now, took me over a year, almost 2 years, to build a strong credit, personal credit report. And at that point, I didn't have any collateral. But like nobody can believe how easy it was to access to capital between 2002 and 2008, right? I remember one night telling my wife, like, how responsible are they? Like, they offer us a mortgage, a car payment, like everything that we ever dream about, and nobody asked me for income. I was able to repay the loan in like a year because the economy was good, business was blooming at that point. But I learned that the process is the same. You need to have personal credit history, and you need to have some of the capital that you need, because nobody will offer you 100%. Now, the other thing is, the main difference was, at that time I purchased an existing business. I didn't start from zero. And when you purchase an existing business, if that business provide you the financials, it's easy, because that doesn't is necessarily considered a startup, right? Versus if you are trying to start something from scratch, that's kind of different, because there's no record, there's no sales, there's no income taxes that you can prove that the business is able to generate some income, basically.
That is a great point. And I'll jump in there just to say, when you think about those two different things, as an entrepreneur, which do you think is a smarter move when it comes to that?
I think if you can prove that you are able to find customers and you make some sales, I think that they will be willing to help. And you can use what we call CDFI, community development financial institutions. Those are non-for-profits designed to help startups, businesses, especially on minority neighborhoods, right? Hispanics, we have 5 times more chances to save money if we start a business versus if we find a job. African American, twice, 2 times more chances to save money versus if they find a job. Now, in that case, those organizations, those non-for-profits, are willing to take a little bit of risk to provide you some seed capital for you to start the business. As I say, sometimes it's a mix. You can start your own, and after a few months or a few years, you will find an existing business that is for sale. The person is retiring, or something happened, and you have the opportunity. If you have the track record, and if you can prove that you are able to find customer, which is the most difficult part on any business, I think that you can make the case.
Yeah, that's a great point. I always try to speak to my students about find your customer first. Find your customer first. Talk to your customer more. You can't talk to your customer too much, right?
Yes.
Get to know your customer, and whether you're actually adding value to what they're looking for. If you are, they're going to buy your product.
Yes. And we have startups that come to us and they have a big following on social media, on Instagram, and it's easy for us to trust them versus someone that come with a really good idea, and we don't see that they then have a database, or that people are not interested on their product or services that they provide. And basically, when I will recommend, the other thing is build the relationship with a banker or a person for a financial institution, not with the individual that offer customer service that they rotated very frequently, but with an individual that can make decisions. Because you can come today and say, you know what, I want to start my business. 2 months after, I did start my business. A year after, I have been in business for a year. Now, if you build that relationship, now you have a compelling journey to share with them, that is more likely that they will support you. But if you show up overnight to a branch and say, hey, I need capital, like, who are you? Like, we don't know anything about you or your business. And for me, that's really important. I will suggest 3 things that have been helping me a lot. One is social media, networking, nonprofits. Those are 3 key factors that make a difference for me on my professional life and on my business life, right? And the 3 most frequently problems that we face are access to capital, access to new markets, and access to networks. And we are 120,000 Latino small businesses in the state of New Jersey. We provide over $20 billion to the New Jersey economy, right? Our businesses sell less than the same businesses owned by other groups. Why? Because we focus on our own community, right? If I open a barber shop for the Hispanic community, my barber shop is competing with many other Hispanic barber shops, right? But the customers from my community will pay, let's say, $14. But you can go to other places that they can charge $75, right? Or more. And it's just because you can provide other services, or you can add some type of benefits to the services that you provide. They will allow you to charge more for those services.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And when you talk about those three things that you mentioned, the capital, the network, and then the other one, when you're talking about
access to capital, access to networks, and access to new markets.
Yeah, so access to new markets is oftentimes intimidating for entrepreneurs. You know, with this audience and with a lot of the people who watch our videos, these are people who are either going back to school, or maybe they happen across our videos and they're very interested in starting their business. So they have the perspective of, first off, I'm not ready for a new market yet, right? But I think your advice in relationship to networks is really important, because if you're thinking about networks and you're thinking about the determination of your potential for a new set of customers, or your potential to test whether your idea for a business or service is actually going to work, I think that's a really important thing to know. What are some of the ways that you recommend people come to you having developed their network?
I mean, networking has 3 steps. The first one is visibility, the second one is credibility, and the third one is profitability. It's not likely that you go to a networking function and someone will be ready to write a check or swipe the credit card to buy from you. Usually you go there to meet an individual, and if you are able to deliver a pitch like the 90-second presentation and say, this is what I do, that person have a pain or a need, they will more likely to contact you, right? Now, regarding new markets is sometimes we don't choose the new markets. The demographics require us to choose a new market, right? And for me, I remember when I started working as a volunteer for a microlender, that I mentioned to them, hey, you are doing great things, but are you offering to the Hispanic market? And they say, no. Are you interested? No. When the census was released in 2011 or 10, later in 2010, they called me back and say, Luis, you make a point. Now we understand what you say. You was telling us that it's a lot of Hispanics in New Brunswick, and we didn't believe you. But the data from the census is telling us that 70% of the people who live in New Brunswick are Hispanics. We more likely to need to offer services to them. Now, other people will say, you know what, I don't have any interest to offer to Hispanic or Asians or African Americans for some reasons. But if you don't pay attention to the demographics, what happens is you will be out of business. Because in many cities and many towns, you see that the demographic change really fast. And in 10 years, your market is gone. You have a Chinese restaurant on a Chinese neighborhood, and all of a sudden is no more Chinese people living there. Now you need to figure it out how you will offer to your products to the new audience, right?
Right.
And that means that you need to adjust the packaging, the presentation, the way that everything is presented, because if the demographic change, something that is polite and nice for an audience is not necessarily polite and nice for another audience. And
yeah. Absolutely. And I'll jump in here to ask a question that my students usually ask, and that is, when you first started your journey of entrepreneurship, what did that feel like? And can you remember specific things about that process?
I mean, it's like I came from a family of entrepreneurs. Like my father used to be a doctor in Colombia, but he always say that with his profession, he won't be able to provide for us. and we have a bakery, and my mom used to do things at home, and I used to sell for her. And like, I was not the only one, and that in that sense was easier for me. I started my first business before high school, during high school, when I went to college. I was always familiar.
Business.
Yes. And business could be just something like transactional, like, I know where to buy this item, and I know where to sell it, and make a cut on that process, right? But the thing is, one of the things that I see from many entrepreneurs is that they are alone, they are isolated, they are the only one in the group of friends or in the family that they are trying to start that journey. And that's the most difficult part, because everybody says, no, 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 don't leave your job. You better to have a paycheck every single week. You better, what I suggest is, you need to surround yourself with other entrepreneurs. As I say often, is like a therapy group, right? You go to a place where everybody is crazier than you. Now you feel okay and say, okay, I have been diagnosed. No, I have been. What is? I use an expression that a lot of people say that I'm crazy, but until I get diagnosed, I'm not crazy, right? But it's easy for you to be surrounded of people that are trying to do the same, in order for you to build a network, and in order for you to keep moving forward.
Yeah. Right? Yeah, and that's important too. We have to remember that our neighborhoods, our communities, if they aren't supporting what we feel is sort of inside of ourselves as entrepreneurs, if we don't have that support mechanism, we have to go out and find it. And we're really lucky in the sense that in New York City and in New Jersey and all these other places, there is an opportunity to connect. One of those is a foundation called Kaufman Foundation, supports 1 Million Cups, which is very open, always free. Like, it's a great place. People go there, they hear about other businesses. It's super approachable. It's one of my favorite places to go, but I'm a morning person. So it's always happening in the mornings. It's big in the Midwest. And you know what I found here in New York City? People in New York City are so busy in the mornings. Like, their mornings are the most intense times. Whereas where these organizations started, they find that you have to find your tribe, right? You have to find your tribe of people that are looking to do the things that you're looking for. What are some of the suggestions you would have for people who want to find their tribe and connect to those entrepreneurs?
Listen, one of the crazy things that I did is I joined a group called BNI, and that's a morning session. The first time that I went to a speed networking event, that was so painful for me that I remember coming back home and telling my wife, everybody's telling me that networking is important, but I don't know how to do this. And it's so painful because I'm not fluent enough in English. And I was frustrated. The following day, I get a call from a young guy who right now is a financial advisor, say, you are really good. I say, what are you talking about? I feel pain on my neck, on my back, like everywhere. Like that was not pleasant to be there. He said, no, you don't get it. The problem is you are trying to do this on an open group. Come to a closed group where you will have the opportunity to learn and practice. And I did learn that group far away from where my business is, because I was not expecting members of that group to help me to find Hispanic customers, right? And I joined in another town, in Woodbridge, and I was the only Hispanic, and I'm the only Hispanic in many boards of directors that I belong to, in many groups. I look around and I laugh. I used to feel like bad or uncomfortable. Now is the common. Now I know that I will be the only one. But what this group allowed me was to meet with the same group of people, all of them professionals or business owners, and to learn from different environments. That's what, if you go to a co-working space or to an incubator, that's what happened. Now, the idea is that you have the ability to interact with them for at least an hour every week, because the idea of the most important part of this group is that we measure everything. We measure attendance, we measure businesses that we refer to other members, we measure if we do one-to-ones, we measure, and that's probably the most important portion that helped me to grow.
Wow.
When I started going to networking events, my English used to feel like a strong, like from the street, right? And I say, but why if I'm in Spanish, I'm able to communicate very like eloquent and very polite. Why in English? Now, when I moved to this group and I used this group just as my conversation class, right? And it was funny because they didn't believe it. Are you paying to come here? Just to, yes, because I don't have this opportunity. And at my own business, I only have the opportunity to speak in Spanish. And here I am forced to speak English and to listen to English for 2 hours every week. Now, what happened is when I learned the language from each profession, I was able to improve and I start sound a little bit more polite than before. My accent is something that I cannot work on, right? And at one point,
but that also makes you who you are, and that's the great thing about it these days. Like, people really appreciate the variety that folks bring to the table.
Let me tell you one.
Your perspective really matters even more.
Yes, this is funny because one nonprofit that I was working with, the board of directors decided to offer me $2,500 to take classes, like to speak better English, right? And one of the board members said, no, that's his biggest asset. This is the only one who has like a really good background to match what he's trying to do. Like, if we take that away from him, people won't believe that he knows how to reach out to the Hispanic market. And, you know, it's very interesting because people sometimes they try to think alike, but sometimes they understand the difference and they value those differences.
And Louis, I just want to add here some things related to your background, just because you've done quite a lot. And since you've been here in the US, and you really are a champion for the Hispanic community in so many different ways. So much of your work has come in terms of the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce in New Jersey, and the ways that you're really speaking about those, like you said, 120,000 small business owners there in New Jersey. I love that you're doing that in the sense that there needs to be a focus on it, especially at my school, right? Where at the university where I teach, there's this sense that I'm Latino and I'm the majority, which ultimately isn't normal for them. Mm-hmm. Yet, when it comes to representation, oftentimes with businesses, with entrepreneurial groups, and with other places, they don't feel that type of support because they aren't necessarily given the opportunity to have access to grow their businesses, to create and have leadership positions relative to those kinds of things. So I'm wondering, when it comes to entrepreneurship, and I see you also got granted a Changemaker of the Year for 2011, and that allows you to create this type of change. But what does it really mean for a university or for any community to come together and recognize that there is this disparity, and how do we address it?
Okay. When I started my journey in 2010, that I left my day-to-day operation at my own business, and I started working as a volunteer, free, for nonprofits, trying to make a case that we need to provide services in Spanish to minority-owned businesses, because 60% of them will prefer to learn new subjects in Spanish. It's not your students, but the parents of those students, if they can have a conversation with you, but if you bring them to a classroom, they will prefer to learn new subjects in Spanish. Now, I knocked the door of the statewide Hispanic Chamber of Commerce 3 times, and they say no to me 3 times, until they came to a Hispanic business that I start, Hispanic Business Expo that I start in Edison 9 years ago. And what they saw what I was doing, they say, why are you not helping us? Why are you helping them? They say, because I came here, I knocked the door, and you say that you didn't have interest to work with the small businesses. This is 2 things. 92% of the businesses in the US are micro businesses. If 1 of every 3 hire 1 more person, we will have full employment. That's the power of micro businesses. And I say before, a Latino individual has 5 times more chances to save money if they open a business versus if they find a job. The only time that I've been underrepresented make me happy was that I went to a meeting with the Secretary of Labor, who is now in charge of the Democratic Party, and he was talking about long-term unemployment, and we didn't make the chart. Like Latinos didn't make the chart. And I say, wow, this is like bad. But I start, learning about long-term unemployment. Basically, that was people that the entire industry disappeared, right? Like telecommunications, or a couple of industries that disappeared. The people that are used to work in that industry, that are vice president or presidents or C-level, they lost those jobs, and nobody want to use them because they are too expensive, and they don't think that those that experience can be used for new industries, right? Now, what I ended realizing is, because we didn't have those jobs, we didn't lose that job, we didn't have to face that problem. That's good for us as a community, right? But now, the other thing is, when finally the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce invited me to participate, I'm happy to announce I just started since January. I became the chairman of the board of directors of the statewide Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. And the only thing that I did is I opened the doors, thank you, for micro businesses with less than 5 employees, businesses that are run by family members, businesses that are run, the father, the mom, and the 2 teenager kids, that they don't go out to play ball or football in the afternoon. They go back to the bakery, to the pizzeria, to the restaurant, and help their parents to build that business, right? Those are the ones that the kids that are going to your school right now, they can help a lot if they adopt a little bodega, a little pizza parlor, a little barber shop, and they, with their knowledge, they help them to promote those businesses. The economy will be better for the entire neighborhood. Now, the most powerful thing that we can learn as a minorities is how to build our credit, because the credit score is the most important asset for an individual. The credit score will be checked at the beginning or at the end of any financial transaction, right? If the parents never learn how to build the credit score, the student that is going to college, they probably don't know how to do it, right? And when they have the big opportunity and they want to pitch the business idea, if they don't have credit score, they are like the last people on the line versus other people that they probably don't have strong ideas, but they have better way to present their business opportunities, right? Now, as I say before, is if we open the opportunity and the doors to other people to come and feel welcome, now we will build what we did at the statewide Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. We start with 500 members in 2012. Now we have 3,800 members. The majority of the members are micro businesses, because the majority of businesses in the US are micro businesses. Now, if you have enough micro businesses, guess what? Corporations want to deal with you. They want to do business with you. Why? Because every time that we throw an event, it's sold out, because they want to do businesses with micro businesses, because many of them, they provide products or services through them. And basically, that's the way to build our reputation, our credibility, and we will be ready to the following phase, that is profitability. As a non-for-profit, we don't want to make profits, but our profit is, if we generate extra income, we can provide more and better services for our constituency.
Yeah. And that's such a great point. And I like the way that you're framing this concept that people can develop their smaller businesses, especially if they come together in groups.
Yes.
One of the things I try to teach my students is make sure that you connect to your community, your neighborhood, your industry. Go to the industry events, connect to the other people in that industry, because when you cluster together, there's much more strength around that. Yeah. And you get to learn from other people's mistakes too. Yes. Entrepreneurs are ready and willing, especially if you're not competing in the direct market, they're ready and willing to help each other and make sure that other people don't make the same mistakes that they make, or at least learn some of the things by telling the stories. Yeah. So with that in mind, What were one or two of your bigger mistakes that you took away and said, wow, this is a huge mistake and I've learned so much from that? And what was one of the lessons that you took away?
Sometimes as a small business owners, we want to achieve something just to prove that we're right. And the biggest mistake is that we spend too much time or too much money trying to prove that we're right. We sometimes we don't follow instructions or advice from people that are in a better position than us. We follow instruction or advice from people that are in a like bad position compared to us. Now, as I say, the idea is when you start your entrepreneur journey that you save the time and the money that you can, as much time and as much money as you can. For example, a lot of people, 40% of the businesses or the individuals that come to us and say, we want to start a business, they want to start a food related business, right? But starting a restaurant is very expensive and is very difficult to get financing too, right? And when we tell them, let's start with a food truck, or why you don't work in a company, in a restaurant for a few days, right? Just to get a taste. Is one thing is to make your favorite recipe once a month or twice a year for your family, and the other thing is making the same recipe every single day 100 times for people that you don't know, right? Now the other thing is that you need to control the cost of that recipe. When you cook something at home for your special significant other or family members, you don't care about the cost of the ingredients, right? But if you are doing that for a restaurant, you better take care of the cost of the ingredients, right? Those are the type of things that I will suggest. And I'm in many cases, if you have a business idea and you know that is a business close to where you live, just offer to them to do some work, some type of work. Like offer you a student can offer, hey, I want to do your social media, right, for a month or for 2 months. Just let me see how this run, right? Or let me stay here, or things like that. And that way you will learn a little bit. Now you will understand that it's not always like fancy and very elegant. What you do is looks like on an expensive restaurant, but behind doors is the same thing. You need to take the ingredients from the freezer, you need to cook them, you need to prepare them, and by the time they get to that fancy table, takes a lot of people and a lot of hours, right?
Yeah.
Those are the type of things that I would like people to understand. That way, they will do it with other people's money and not with their own money. Plus, will be on other people's time, not in their own time.
That's great. That's great. And when you think about, as we wrap things up now, so the half an hour has flown by. Holy cow. Half an hour. Who knew it could go so fast?
Yes.
So in 30 minutes, we've really covered a lot, and I know for the Latino community and the Hispanics on this, and all the other people who are interested in their own, backgrounds and what it means to create entrepreneurship in your communities, I think this has been a really interesting webinar, and I'd love for you to give, kind of a final pointer or two that you really feel like brings it all together. And whenever you're talking about making your community and your uniqueness something that is an entrepreneurial success.
I will insist social media, non-for-profits, and networking. Like those are the three things that, one of the problems that we have as a community is that we don't necessarily tell what we do in a really good way that other people that doesn't look like us will understand, right? Sometimes you need to do that on a express sheet. Sometimes you need to do that as a percentage of the entire economics, right? Or as a part of the demographics. When people understand the value that we bring to the society, they are more likely to pay attention to us. Non-for-profits are the key. Like, many people complain that we don't have access to everything that we want. a lot of non-for-profits that they have the resources, they struggle to get to us just because they have a name that we cannot pronounce, right? Or because we don't really understand. It's very tricky. I remember telling people, okay, how I can help you? I say, I need a business plan or I need a marketing plan. I say, okay, I can offer you that. Okay, how much you charge me? No, this is free. I mean, you don't need to pay me. Someone will pay me in order for me to help you. So I don't know if it's free, I don't like it. I don't think that is good. You say, okay, what is the game? Like, you really need it, and I'm giving you the opportunity to do it for free to you. If somebody is paying for you to get access to that information, sometimes we don't trust. And with social media, we can support our local businesses. I'm very sure that many of your students have 30,000 followers on Instagram, 100,000 followers on Twitter. You know, just saying a good thing for a local business could be the difference between that business to stay in business for another month or another year, or to close, just because they don't have the ability to do that on their own. Especially, as I say, for a Hispanic business owner that doesn't have the ability to communicate in English, they cannot reach out to other audiences just because they don't know the language. Imagine if a Korean student tweet something in Korean regarding a Hispanic restaurant, or vice versa. What if, in Los Angeles, the most popular item on food is Korean tacos, because the Mexican kids used to go to the Korean families and they bring the tortillas and they bring the food, and they ended eating tortillas tacos. If that happened for us as a community, I do believe that we have many ways to improve.
Those are some amazing insights there at the end, and I really do appreciate your time today, Luis. It has been an honor to have you on the show. This has been Luis Delahoz, and he has been here specifically to talk about his community and the ways that Latino and Hispanics can take advantage of entrepreneurship. Our students, I know, can benefit from this as well. I took away a couple of great ideas about what I want to do in relationship to the program at BMCC just from talking to you. So you actually gave me a lot of insights too. I have to say and repeat what you said about nonprofits. There are so many organizations, so many entities out there around the New York City metro area that provide support specifically for small businesses. And they're generally within your neighborhoods and within your communities, whether it's workshops at your library or websites that you can go to or other materials that are available. I have a giant long list on the BMCC website in the entrepreneurship section. And it lists a bunch of those things that are available for all kinds of different people. So thank you again, Luis, for your time today. Happy President's Day to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. And I'm open to connect on social media. If you know any business owner that you admire, feel free to connect and offer how you can support them on your local community. You can learn a lot from just interacting with other business owners. That's money that is like that you don't need to spend, and they will save you time because they will laugh every time that they recognize a mistake that they make.
Yeah, so true, so true, so true. Thanks again, everyone, and have an amazing day.